Councilmember Love will be arriving late, so we'll start here. Councilmember Scott. Councilmember McCarthy. Here. Councilmember Wright.
Here.
Mayor Porter. Here. Council President Raynor.
Here. Invocation. Can I get you to do the invocation, Ms. Higgs, please?
Let's pray. Dear Lord, we thank you for this day, Lord. We thank you for your grace and your mercy, Lord. Lord, we ask that you be with us as we go throughout this meeting this evening, Lord, and help us to do your will in the city of Sea Pleasant. And we ask all these blessings in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. In Jesus' name I do pray. Amen.
Pledge allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all. Can I ask for approval of the agenda?
So move. Second.
Moved by Councilmember Wright, second by Councilmember Bilbro. Any questions? Mrs. Ball?
Online voting has been open.
Thank you.
Unanimously approved by the City Council.
Thank you. Now, can I ask for approval of? Give me 2030 on it. Regular work session meeting minutes for Monday, April 1st.
So move.
Moved by Councilmember Wright, second by Councilmember Higgs. Any questions? Hearing none.
Online voting has been open. Meeting minutes unanimously approved by City Council.
Thank you. Approval of meeting minutes for the budget hearing held on Monday, April 8th.
So move. Second.
Moved by Councilmember Wright, second by Councilmember Bilbro. Any questions? Hearing none.
Online voting has been open. Meeting minutes approved by City Council.
Thank you. Approval of public session meeting minutes held on Monday, April 8th.
So move.
Second, Councilwoman Higgs.
Moved by Councilmember Wright, second by Councilmember Higgs. Any questions? Hearing none.
Online voting has been open. Meeting minutes approved by City Council 5-1.
Thank you. Approval of budget hearing meeting minutes for Saturday, April 13th.
So move.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Wright, second by Councilmember Higgs. Any questions? Hearing none.
Online voting has been open. Meeting minutes has been approved 5-1.
Thank you. Approval of special session meeting minutes held on Saturday, April 13th.
So move.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Wright, second by Councilmember Bilbro. Any questions? Hearing none.
Online voting has been opened. Meeting minutes unanimously approved by City Council.
Thank you. Approval of closed session meeting minutes held on Saturday, April 13th.
So move.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Wright, second by Councilmember Higgs. Any questions? Hearing none.
Online voting has been opened. Meeting minutes approved 5-1 by City Council.
Thank you. Approval of special session meeting minutes held on Monday, April 22nd.
So move.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Wright, second by Councilmember Higgs. Any questions? Hearing none.
Online voting has been opened. Meeting minutes approved 5-1 by City Council.
Approval of special session meeting minutes held on Tuesday, April 23rd.
So move.
Moved by Councilmember Wright, second by Councilmember Bilbro. Any questions? Hearing none.
Online voting has been opened. Meeting minutes approved unanimously by the City Council.
Thank you. Approval of closed session meeting minutes held on Tuesday, April 23rd.
So move.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Wright, second by Councilmember Bilbro. Any questions? Hearing none.
Online voting has been opened. Meeting minutes approved by City Council 5-1.
Thank you. Approval of special session meeting minutes held on Wednesday, April 24th.
So move.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Wright, second by Councilmember Higgs. Any questions?
Online voting has been opened. Meeting minutes approved 5-1 by City Council.
Okay. Yeah, we had a good time with the citizens' comment. Do we happen to have any citizens here or online?
We do have a citizen online, but she says she's not able to hear, so I'm sending a message over. I'll see if she wanted to speak. Ms. Brooks, we have allowed you in to speak. Please unmute yourself. Ms. Brooks, if you could speak again so that we can hear you in council chambers.
Madam Clerk, if she's not able, can you ever do it, is she able to type it in the chat so that you can bring about her
I
comment?
can ask her to type it in the chat, but I can hear it from the audio room. It's just not playing inside of chambers, so they're trying to work on that now. I just sent the message, see if she sends something back. She said, it's not her, it's them, because we can hear it. Okay. I sent her a message to request that she submit her, comment in the chat. Okay. Ms. Brooks, can you please speak again for us? Okay, she said she doesn't have a question. She just wanted to state that the Zoom was muted, and she couldn't hear anything.
Is there anyone else?
No, sir, and no written comments have been submitted.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we're gonna have to shuffle the presentations around. Mayor Porter.
All right, what I have to bring before the council is a few proclamations, okay? From the mayor's office. Two of the proclamations are gonna be done without having the parties that are here to receive the proclamation. One of them is for National Teachers Appreciation Week, which was held between May 6th through the 12th, 2024. I did have the opportunity to go to Sea Pleasant Elementary School and present to the assistant principal, okay, of that particular Wednesday. They're very appreciative of receiving that, and I gather they were going to read it over the speaker to the entire school body for that. And it simply reads, whereas teachers are a foundation of our school system across the nation, and whereas teachers' value is an immeasurable and unknown influence in the lives of students, and whereas teachers awaken the joy and creative expression, their pursuit of knowledge. And whereas teaching is not a job, it is a human service. And whereas teachers are what people remember about the education more than what they learn. And whereas invaluable institution of teaching continues to be taken for granted as it relates to importance of the extension of home environment. Whereas the city of Sea Pleasant wishes to formally give honor, respect, and gratitude to all the teachers of Sea Pleasant Elementary School. And now therefore, I, Kelly Porter, serving as mayor of Sea Pleasant, a smart city of excellence, do hereby respectfully, admirably observe the week of May 6th through 12th, 2024 as National Teachers Appreciation Week, and urge all to recognize, acknowledge the impact of teachers in our lives. The other proclamation would be for National Cities, Towns, and Villages Month, okay? And that's a recognition for, again, national cities, towns, and villages, of which we are one. And whereas the National League of Cities was founded in 1924 in Lawrence, Kansas, and as the American Municipal Association by state municipal leagues seeking more coordination and national representation as cities and towns and villages expanded rapidly. And whereas a nonpartisan National League of Cities is the oldest and largest organization representing municipal governments throughout the United States, representing the interests of 19,000 cities and towns and villages across the country. And whereas today the National League of Cities works in partnership with 49 state municipal leagues across the country to strengthen local leadership, drive innovation, and influence in federal policies and impact local programs and operation. Whereas as the voice of cities, towns, and villages in Washington, D.C., the National League of Cities has successfully championed federal legislative solutions and support municipalities and has worked closely with Congress and the executive branch to educate policymakers on the realities of local implementation. And whereas the city of Sea Pleasant is proud to be a member of the National League of Cities and has benefited from the organization's research, technical expertise, federal advocacy, and opportunities to learn from each other local governments. And whereas local governments are the bedrock of American democracy, providing 336 million residents with the most accountable, responsive, inclusive, ethical, and transparent government in the world. And whereas from the nation's smallest villages to the largest cities, America's local governments have been essential in transforming the United States of America into the greatest, most influential nation in the world's history. And whereas the city of Sea Pleasant was the first incorporated in 1931, is proudly served today by a mayor and a city council and a municipal workforce of 65 dedicated public servants. Now therefore be it resolved that the city of Sea Pleasant hereby proclaims May 2024 as National Cities, Towns, and Villages Month in celebration of America's local governments and the National League of Cities' historic centennial anniversary. Okay. Thank you for that. And ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to do this last one by having our clerk come to the front, please. You know, congratulations is always in store for you, for what you do so tirelessly for this city. And Kim, we want to make sure that you're appreciated. I did put Ms. Ball in for another recognition. Hopefully she will receive an information on that very soon because I feel she truly, truly deserves, as I feel from the mayor's office and the city council does, for your tireless service for a whole lot of years, okay? And the 55th annual Professional Municipal Clerks Week, May 5th through the 24th, whereas the City of Professional Municipal Clerks, and a time-honored and vital part of local government, exists throughout the world, and whereas the Office of Professional Municipal Clerks is the oldest among public servants, and whereas the Office of Professional Municipal Clerks provides the professional link between the citizens, the local government bodies, and agencies that govern at all levels, and whereas professional municipal clerks have pledged to be ever mindful of the neutrality and impartiality, rendering equal service to all. And whereas the professional municipal clerk serves as the information center on functions of local government, and whereas the professional municipal clerks continually strive to improve the administration of the affairs of the office of professional municipal clerks through the participation in education programs, seminars, workshops, and the annual meetings of their state, province, county, and international professional organizations. And whereas the city of Seat Pleasant has a great fortune of employing one of the state's most honored municipal clerks, Mr. Sean Ball. I'm getting that right because I want to make sure I stay on the ball. Okay. Formerly Deshaun Lanham. And whereas Ms. Ball has provided exemplary service to as Seat Pleasant City Clerk for over 15 years, Mrs. Ball has numerous accolades and has accomplishments, which include being nominated for Clerk of the Year by professional organizations in Maryland's Municipal Clerk Association, the first African-American awarded Clerk of the Year by the state of Maryland, and the first African-American to be elected president of the Maryland Municipal Clerks Association. I think that needs some round of applause right there. That's solid. Okay. Now, therefore, I, Kelly Porter, Mayor of the City of Seat Pleasant, a smart city of excellence, do recognize the week of May 5th through the 11th, 2024 as Professional Municipal Clerks Week, and further extend appreciation to our professional municipal clerk, Mr. Sean Ball, and to all professional municipal clerks, the vital services they provide to their communities. Thank you so much. Trying to keep this, you know, it's hard to keep a proclamation secret from the clerk. And so forth. But we want to know that we truly appreciate you. Thank you so much for all you do.
The baby's breath.
Now, I do want to say that I did, we know we have another person that acts as a clerk for the council, the mayor and council, and she does a stellar job. She wasn't going to be here this evening, but, and we have known as Miss Kirtland Rhoda. So I really wanted to recognize her for what she does, you know, and I gave her flowers a little bit earlier, along with a token of the mayor and the council's esteem, okay? So, and I believe she was very appreciative of that. So you all do some nice things for our employees that we appreciate so very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Vernon Seat Pleasant. Brenda McChrystal? Yeah, CEO President. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
All right.
You ready for me?
You ready for you?
Just need the slides. While he's doing that, I just want to thank you for having us this afternoon or this evening now, right? And say a special hello to honorable councilmen and councilwomen, and to our mayor. I don't think I need this.
It does, because it's recorded. Recorded.
Thank you, okay. So, I had a speech prepared, but the last 5 minutes just changed everything. Because it was so nice to see the recognition, because we're HR, we're about recognition. To see so much honor bestowed upon individuals who are worthy and who deserve it. So, thank you for that. Because we, like you will evaluate us, we're also evaluating, are our values aligned? is there something we can do to help? But having said that, I'm going to move forward because I know we only have a few minutes. But thank you. I really appreciate being here, really.
Very good.
So a little bit about Spectrum HR Solutions and a little bit about me as the owner. I discovered years ago that there was a critical need amongst organizations for the kind of human resources that considered sociology, psychology, and biology, aside from just the ordinary operations and the skills, because nothing happens unless we all work together to make it happen, right? So having said that, a lot of our colleagues and friends said, you know, there's something else we can do. And so for the last 20 years, it's amazing, for the last 20 years, we've been helping organizations, primarily nonprofits, improve their working conditions, morale, improve, I want to say the expertise of individuals who values align with the organization, if that makes sense. So I know we have a PowerPoint coming
Yes.
that I can jump into. So we are here, and I want to introduce my colleague as well. It's my human resources specialist, Nita Armstrong. Nita is the hands-on, dig in, get it done professional. She's fantastic. Oh, there it is. Great. Next slide, please. Great. Having the opportunity to stand before you and offer our services is absolutely an honor, truly. From what I understand, there are some challenges, and all organizations have challenges, no question about it. We've got day-to-day living, we've got personal, we have family obligations, and so naturally, there are going to be organizational issues. But we evaluate those organizational issues. So I'm giving you kind of tops of trees. Nita's going to come up in a couple minutes and really kind of dig into more of the proposal and some of the items that we know that you're interested in knowing about how we would go about that work, what will we do to get through that work, who do we need to partner with, because it is a partnership. We do absolutely nothing alone. In fact, we work inside of our own organization as teams and as partners, because everybody has something else, some skill that they can share. That makes sense. So we have 3 primary areas of business in terms of helping other organizations. The first is operational excellence, operational efficiencies. And when I say operational excellence and efficiencies, I mean everyone paying attention to what it is they contribute to the organization, if that makes sense. The next is compensation design and performance management. Those are very difficult. There's no perfect performance management system, but we do help organizations design our compensation or their compensation programs. And particular attention is being paid to the issue of pay equity. So we're all about looking and evaluating what's fair, what's equal, what are some budgetary concerns. So we look at the big picture. The next is executive coaching and leadership development as a specialty. And that is an area that we added about, I want to say 5 years ago, and it has just kind of exploded. Why? Because so many people are in supervisory managerial positions, and they're fantastic at the technical expertise. But when it comes to sociology, psychology, and biology, and understanding how we all work together as humans, there's a little bit that needs to be provided, a little bit of guidance, a little bit of training, a little bit of communication, that needs to be, skills that needs to be developed, if that makes sense. So those are the primary areas, and then the equity, diversity, or the diversity, equity, inclusion, now it's acceptance and belonging, and accessibility and belonging, takes a framework. We use an overarching framework to look at the hidden reasons and hidden causes of inequities, okay? What that means is we'll look at policies, you know, are they written in a way that excludes people, or are they written in a way that is inclusive? So we look at the entire big picture. Having said that, I'm going to now turn it over to my expert here, Nita. And I would imagine you will have questions for us at the end? Okay.
I'll lower this a little bit. Good evening, council members and Mayor Porter. Thank you
evening.
again.
Good evening.
I want to echo what Brenda said here. It's truly an honor, as well as we are grateful for the opportunity to make an impact, to drive engagement and build culture with team members. I think that starts with recognition. And and we're going to actually skip down a few more slides.
So how many slides, because I need to send them a message, so which, okay, so there,
We're going to go
is
one
that
more.
one, the
Yep.
team?
Yep, go down
Okay.
one more, please.
One more?
Yes,
Okay,
there we go.
okay.
So Brenda has actually talked a little bit about our team, our sources, our tools, and how we are able to show up for you as well as your team members. What I'd like to talk about is the nitty-gritty of how we are successful and how we're going to do this collaboratively. So there are multiple different components that's going to drive engagement. It's going to be recognizing what engagement means. We have to help team members understand and define what engagement looks like. So we start off by building out a survey and delivering the survey, looking at the analytics behind the data. How do we respond to learning and development? How do we respond to understanding our compliance factors as well as hiring strategies? Or do we have the right team members in the right seat, and do they have the right tools to be successful? The next part is education. Learning and development is a huge component for retention as well as driving our team members to be successful. So we're going to identify an opportunity such as a learning and development platform, install that to build and upskill team members. I think continuous education is a huge factor for growth. Federal and state compliance is going to be really important. There are some federal and state laws, audits and compliance reports that need to be completed as well. So we're going to ensure that everything is done in a timely manner, as well as submitted and are prepared for the future years as well. The best way to ensure that we drive engagement is to ensure that we are hiring top talent as well as understanding our best practices. So we're going to look at our interview practices as well as our hiring best practices, educate our leaders within the organization on what that looks like, our do's and don'ts as well. Collaborative efficiency is really important for team members to understand what are team building tools. What do we have in our arsenal to better collaborate with one another? It's just better communication as well as just figuring out how to even pose an email so that it's received well are simple tools that we're going to work with team members on. And then centralized HR resources. We want to make sure that everyone can go to one place to gather all their information, right? It's better to have updated and put together information in one source. So we're going to implement an HR hub that's going to have that, similar to an intranet. If we could get down to the next slide. Brenda spoke a little bit about process development and operational effectiveness, and that takes multiple different components. Driving the employee engagement assessment, similar to an engagement survey, pulse survey, is going to be really important. Looking at our current operations, how do we do our internal processes, and evaluating, are they efficient, are they modernized, are they people-focused, are they empathetic, are going to be really important as well. And leadership development is a huge component on how we're successful. Our leaders are our daily successors, are building our daily successors. Not only is it important for our leaders to understand the tools that they have to be successful, but also to show up empathetically, right? And to humanize the approach of growth. Learning management is going to be really important in understanding how we can actually build the tools necessary for upskilling, and we want to encourage that continued education. And then we want to create some transparency and really continue to build trust. I think that culture sits within these components, and we want to ensure that these pillars are strong within the foundation. And then we'll move down to the next slide, please. So one of the things that we want to ensure that you have is data, right? I think data is very important. Sometimes it might be too much. We try to keep some of the numbers down. So the employees are truly motivated by these characteristic traits. Inc. magazine did a quick research, and based on their findings, it's 65% have recognized their employees are motivated by their trust in leadership, their trust in their managers. We've heard employees stay because of their managers, right? And that's where this information confirms. Meaningful work, they want to be able to add value. So helping them understand what value looks like, how you are contributing to this organization is going to be really important. And that's 50% of the organization wants to feel valued. Opportunity for learning is 80%. Team members are saying that they want to continue to grow, continue to learn, continue to be educated, and we just all have to just create opportunities for that. Recognition is 35%. That's a good majority of the organization that wants to say, hey, I want to feel validated, or I want to be recognized for the hard work that I did. And I'm sure it feels amazing. How we here do that is we start off by collecting some data within this organization. How do team members want to build trust? What does value look like? What are some opportunities? And there's multiple different data points that we're going to go ahead and collect some data. And we're going to analyze this data, take a minute back. We're going to create a more inclusive plan, as well as ensure that it's supportive and it builds continuous engagement. The biggest system that we want to do or build is an agile system. We want to make sure that it is growing as this organization grows, as the community grows, and is able to be adaptable. We are going to also invite champions within the community who are committed to growth. We're going to find advocates and leaders in the community who want to be continuously promoted and be engaged, and we're going to build them as well. And we have some wonderful success stories that Brenda is going to share.
So who have we helped in the past? I chose three organizations that a few years ago we were able to help. An organization, and I went by industry, an international organization, an organization that is a scientific nonprofit organization, and an organization that's a tech company. Two of these capstone projects had to do with the rebuild or the build of a human resources function. That means starting from scratch with papers and files everywhere, and disorganization, and just kind of chaos. A lot of turnover. Not a lot of luck in finding so-called qualified employees. And I'm talking about the one in the middle with the EEO complaints. And so usually when employees are dissatisfied, they figure out a lot of ways to let us know. They tell us by walking out the door, which is not a good thing. They tell us by acting out, maybe not performing or checking out when they're at work, but they're here, but they're not really here. Maybe productivity goes down, and then the complaints. So this particular organization, which is the tech company, did sustain quite a few EEO complaints. And one of the things that we did early on when we were hired or engaged to build their department is we did do the audit, we did do the survey, we did ask employees, we talked to managers, you know, what is it? And all of the questions are always the same, so everybody's hearing the same thing, and these are confidential interviews. I would say 90% of what we do is confidential. And we take good care of making sure that everyone's data is protected. And I'll go tell you a little bit more about that later, but on to this particular example. As we were building the department, we did, and an audit tells us so many things. An audit tells us it's pretty much a diagnostic of what's going on in the organization. And what that means is when we look at a file, an individual's employee record, it pretty much tells us whether this person is being paid fairly, whether the person's being recognized, whether the person has the correct skills for the position they're filling, whether or not their documents are in an incorrect file or not the right file that could possibly put the organization in jeopardy. And it tells a story. It tells us about performance reviews. Are they done? Are they done consistently? So we did notice that there were several items in personnel files that led us to believe that these organizations were going to have multiple complaints, and indeed that was true. So one particular situation, and I will not go into a lot of detail, but one particular situation was around sexual harassment. And we interviewed, how do I say, we structured an investigation, an inquiry into the allegations that the employee made. And as it turns out, this individual, or the two individuals, there were some issues. The issues were mostly on the side of the employer. So we met with the CEO of the organization and said, you know, we've got an issue here. Let's tell you how much this complaint, if it goes through, is going to cost the organization. Let me also tell you how morale killing this situation is, because other people knew and the employer should have known. So the bottom line is the employer said, I like this person. I'm not, fire him? No. Okay, what would you want to do? Here's some other options. You can do leave without pay. You can put, you know, send them on, you know, put them out temporarily. What do you want to do? I don't want to do anything because he makes a lot of money for the company. So we said, that's fine. Here's what we think you need to do. But we, as an organization, as a company, won't be able to accommodate that answer. So the point I want to drive here is, if it's wrong, and we're going to say it, if that makes sense. And we don't have a problem with backing out. So this president said, what do I do without him? I said, well, you're going to have to do without him because there is credible evidence that this is definitely happening. This person who was the offendee, or who was the victim, was experiencing mental and physical issues because she was assigned at night to work with this manager. So it was quid pro quo. And he says, I don't want to do anything to him. I said, well, understood, but this is what's going to happen. In all probability, this person's going to file a complaint. And apparently, the previous HR person told the young lady, go, you know, just ignore him. Go back and do what you're doing. So she was at her wit's end. Having said that, I summarily said, well, you know, I'm really sorry, but we're not going to be able to help you or this organization. You know, we appreciate the opportunity, and perhaps we can refer another group to you. I think he was startled. He says, you guys are leaving? I said, Yeah, because guess what? The decisions you make are decisions that we are going along with. And we cannot step outside of the law. We can't. We can't do that. Now, it might be Pollyanna to you guys, but we stand firm because that's how we get results. So the president said, okay, wait a minute. What if we just put him on, a leave of absence? Okay, and then do not change her job, change his job. So he agreed to that. And I said, now, the second part of this is we got to train the organization. Nobody's had this training at all. We got to do that. So we developed, they'd never done this, so we just created, and everything we do is customized. We don't go to the internet and pull down, oh, gee, here's a form. No, don't do that. We can't do that anymore. No, I mean, I know that used to be the thing to do, but we can't do it because, guess what? It doesn't fit everybody. It's not a one-size-fits-all, right? So having said that, we designed their training, and as a group, a spectrum group, we took turns with who traveled regionally so that we could get all of the employees, and we needed to eyeball them. Could we have done it remote? Absolutely, but there's some trainings that we need to eyeball. We need to hear the feedback. We need to watch the body language. If there's somebody that is tuning out, we need to know that, right? So having said that, we were able to get through the entire organization in kind of record time. I mean, but did employees fuss? Absolutely, because the environment was partially manufacturing and construction too. Whew. That meant that we had to call crews in, and that didn't make anybody happy. But that's not what we're here for. We're here to help build up and stand up an organization. If nobody says thank you, we're used to that. That darn HR, go to HR. They're just But having said that, we know we make a difference. We continue to provide overarching support because it cannot be done in a day. It cannot be done in a week. The work can't be done in a month. We can't say, hey, gee whiz, we're going to train everybody in 2 weeks or 2 months. It can't happen because that won't be effective, right? I mean, we are learners that need to be reinforced as adults, right? So if we're conducting a training, we have to go back and do that. We have to make sure that managers are following up. We have to collect the data, as Nita responded, and then provide that data to the leadership and say, hey, here are our recommendations. This is what we found out. We can't make anybody do anything, but if we want the organization to be what you want it to be, here's what we recommend. The first one, the global initiative, that was, I'm sorry, and we actually remained at that organization for about 7 years. 7 years. And because it takes, I'm not saying that we are going to hang out for 7 years. I'm just simply saying they needed the recurring HR. And so we gotten started. They went, oh, can't you please stay? So we helped move that organization forward, which I'm proud of. So the global HR piece, this was an organization that was going through an M&A. There was it was owned by a German company and Japanese company. They were merging the operations within the United States, and there were several operations within the United States that they wanted to merge. So we had to help them with a merger and acquisition, and while we were doing that, we had to keep employees in place. And some of the things that we came up with were ideas around, again, let's figure out how we're going to communicate it. Because people don't like to hear M&A because that means they think they're losing their job. And some people do. And there's nothing we can do about that. But we can be human and civil as we're delivering a message. We can give We can recommend giving upfront notice. We can say, hey, we're going to help work with you if it comes to that. So this particular organization was pretty impressed with the way we were developing their human resources. So we had an opportunity to actually go to Darmstadt, Germany, because we had to blend or figure out a way to blend Japanese, German, and American culture. How do you do that? So we take our time. But the first thing is learning how everyone communicates. Communication styles vary, right? I mean, I communicate differently. Nita communicates differently. Each of you communicate uniquely depending upon who your audience is. I mean, I'm nervous up here because you guys are councilmen and women. But having said that, it is not going to stop my message, if that makes sense. So the global, under that global perspective, they had us come and present to their German counterparts that were human resources folks. And I could tell you the human resources is quite a bit different in other countries. And they liked some of the initiatives we were taking, so we developed this communication strand, I call it. It was kind of I call it a strand because we had our contingent from the United States visit to Darmstadt and Tokyo and experience that culture. We invited the German contingent or group to come over and work with the engineers in the United States. Now, how do these things cost money? Of course it does, but how much more money would it have been if everybody had walked out the door? Wouldn't have that organization. So having said that, I wanted to particularly point out those two success stories because that's what gives us our energy, really. We do what we love, and I feel so blessed to be standing here before you, sharing these stories because they really, really are important. And as we understand the RFP, there definitely are some challenges that we believe we can help you with. Okay, I'm going to give it back to Nita. You want me to leave it open?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. We are wrapping up here. We are a little
Before we
over
put
our
you to sleep.
time. We just wanted to say thank you again for the opportunity and ask if you had any questions.
Yes, I have a question.
Sure.
Yes, I have a question. This is Councilmember Wright. I just want to get your thoughts on two things. Number one, generational differences. I'm at the tail end of the baby boomers, and when I entered the workforce, the boss was the boss, and that was the way it was. And if you didn't like it, you get another job. But I have two colleagues here, Councilmember Bilbrough and Councilmember McCarthy, who are Gen Z and millennials, and I don't want to use the word confrontational, but they're not going to kind of tolerate that type of authoritarian type of management. Do you focus on the generational differences that exist? And second of all, how do you deal with company politician? The company politician is the person, they're an okay worker, but their real specialty is being the politician in the office. They're able to keep their position because they're able to work the networks instead of being good at their job.
I'm chomping at the bit.
I'll take
Let's do the intergenerational question. Yes, that's a huge problem because the boomers' children are the millennials, and so they're their own group. However, they're still human beings, and what we have found is there's a commonality amongst workers, and it's identified in different ways. For example, the 10 things that employees want was a cross-sectional study of of each of the 5 generations. And what they found was there were 10 things that employees want, no matter where they are on the spectrum. Now, they might want more pay, independence, do what they want to do, say what they want to say, but what keeps them there is A, the value that they think they provide, whether or not they're recognized for the work that they do, the transparency of management. They need that transparency, good, bad, or indifferent. They're adults. We're all adults. So if it's a or bad or good or news or whatever, we need to be more transparent. And so when we're transparent, because that's what this generation wants. I check with my kids. My kids are millennials. and one of the things I know just by talking to their peers and working with organizations who have all 5 generations, guess what? You start to break down those barriers when, oh, gee whiz, I have found a new, and this has got to come to individuals almost, I want to say it's inherent when they believe that they've got some power, and that's what people want. They want to have power and control over their own lives. That's the generational piece, because it doesn't matter. Let's say reward and money and benefits are important, absolutely. But guess what? It never came near the top when they did that study on the 10 things that people want. Why? It moved from maybe 8 for boomers, maybe it moved up 5 for folks who needed to put kids through college, and maybe for the folks coming out of school, it might have moved up to 2 or up to 3, but never did it overshadow what people valued most, which was treat me like I want to be treated.
Everybody wants to be treated like that. How does it age? Go figure.
Nice. Good luck.
Everybody.
Must
No,
be
that-
nice.
But part 2 of that is the other question. So you got the politician. Oh, we love those. Because productivity and getting paid for what you do is really important. Because guess what? When employees are not on task, they're taking money. I don't know how else to say it. It's sort of like, oh, here's your check, but and can we have that report? And can you tell us what you're working on? And because those busybodies, which are in every organization, we work with the managers to help them maybe change that message. Does that make sense? And that message might be, okay, let's look at what is making this person unhappy. Because people that aren't focused on their jobs, there's something else going on. So we really try to get to the bottom of what is really happening. If somebody's not coming to work or not showing up even though they're remote, we need to know why. There might be a legal reason why they can't. They might, maybe there's something going on in their home. Not that we pry, but we have to ask those questions. Is there something else that might be keeping you from dialing in to the meeting? Anyone is there something that's keeping you, if you're reporting in or you have the duty to report your essential personnel, you're not there, there must be something going on. If not, then we need to talk about, what we can do to help. We always offer that help first. Always offer that help. Sometimes they take it, sometimes they don't. And I'm sure, like any other organization, you have alternatives. And we say it. There's some alternatives. Because this is how important you are and this job is in our organization. Did I answer?
Yes, you did. Thank
I
you.
get passionate about that.
Basically, because the last portion of your comments, okay, touched on what I was going to ask outside of what Councilman Wright asked, was the psychological aspect of what it is in dealing with employees and the crisis help that's necessary in reference to that. You know, you don't know what a person's dealing with when they come into the workplace or what issues they had that may have put something there, and it may not have surfaced, okay, upon the interview or even working for a period of time, but as time goes on, specific triggers come out, trigger specific dynamics, and how to deal with that and those kinds of things. And part of your services that offers that from a critical thing. That's why we've been trying to look into some type of crisis services, being an integral part of the organization.
Do you have an EAP program as part of the benefits? Okay,
So,
yes?
yeah,
Let me say yes.
so that's our,
Okay, how well does it work?
but that was an issue, so I'm sorry. Thank you, Council President.
Mayor Porter, I'd actually like to add something on that. I think it's going to be informative to not just have the tools, but to educate team members on how to use it and how easily accessible it is, right? It's probably just a phone number that they can call to figure out who can they go to talk to. And psychological safety is huge in understanding what is it that they're facing and then creating space to say, listen, we're going to work through this together.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. Thank you for your presentation. I am looking through the previous clients that you have had, and they're impressive as it is, right? I'm curious, though, the team that would be working, obviously you're not going to have the same size team for a small municipality as you would for someone like Raytheon, right? So how do you determine, you know, how many team members, and also who would be like the point of contact? Because, you know, everybody isn't gonna, we see your faces, but we may not see your faces once, you know, that starts.
Great question. So, when we're responding to an RFP, we're already thinking about, gee whiz, is this work what we do? What are the issues? Because oftentimes RFPs are not as clear as they could be, because sometimes you don't know what you don't know. So what we do is we take the information that we've been given. Oh, thank you. We take the information that we've been given through an RFP, and we determine whether or not what skills are going to need to address point A, point B, such as the learning process. That's a, how should I say it? That's a system that's going to be put in place, and it's going to last. It should be able to take this organization through some incredible changes. But those changes will come intermittently. So we'll dive into go into our resources. We have a staff of 13. We've got a really, really strong infrastructure. And we've got some really, really smart people working for us. I'm so proud of them. And having said that, we would dive into or tap into the skills of our certified coach and trainer. She's the one who kind of runs our leadership development program. We would also tap into, of course, our day-to-day operational expert. So you would see her on a regular basis. Yes. And who else did we want to pull in there? Karen and who else? Yourself. Oh, yeah. Well, yes. I kind of oversee everything, but, you know, because I'm a perfectionist. There's no such thing as perfection, guys. I mean that, and we don't expect it. But having said that, I always want to know what's going on. And who else? We're going to do, who else do we have? Karen. It was Karen, you, and TJ? Anyway, we have and Melody, of course. So we tap into our own experts, if that makes sense. Okay. And how do we, and maybe just to go a little bit further, how do we stay on top of all of the projects? We use a project management system for all of our clients. Together, we set, if we are able to work for you, we would set up a schedule with a calendar so that you know when we're going to be available, how long we're going to be available. You'll tell us what your availability is. We, as your providers, will make accommodations to be and attend whatever meetings you need us to attend. And having said that, I'm going to turn it back over. Did I answer your question? So yeah, there is a team. You won't see everybody at the same time.
Okay.
It depends on what we're working on. She's going to work on the audit, so you're going to see her first, right? And then Melody, right? Okay.
Yeah, we'll start off with me being your primary contact, and then navigate the landscape from there.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Good evening.
I want to kind of piggyback off what Councilmember Wright said. And I'm going by the standpoint, I'm a baby boomer. And when you've worked in a company for 25, 30 years, that the rules were the rules and you had to abide by them. So we don't have a lot of sympathy for younger people that come and say, well, I don't want to adhere to that. I don't want that. Now, to get into the legal prospect of it, if you're going to change or allow them to do kind of what they want to do, I'm going to come at you because you didn't allow me to do it. I had to observe a 30-minute lunch. I had to observe a 10-minute break. So when they come in and they may say, well, I think that break's not long enough because that's not long enough for me to go get food. Okay, then you bring your food. We had to adhere to the rules because you can get into a legal problem because if you don't come at them and you did come at me, then I'm gonna have a problem with that. I yield the floor. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Love. I can take this question. You're absolutely right. There are some legalities. One of the biggest things that we do is we want to ensure that you're compliant. And we want to do that by maybe educating, ensuring, doing an audit, and then understanding the differences, right? We create a policy to make sure that the organization is compliant, but also that the employees are able to follow it too. So a lot of what fits and I guess resolves that gap in generation is communication. It's a huge key and tool, but also helping people understand in a language it's received, right? A policy that was written in any time period may not read the same way, but the underlying law is the same. So how we write and educate is probably going to be different depending on who we're educating. But we want to make sure that you're legally compliant regardless.
Mr. President, if I may.
Go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. And so I'm coming in on the back end as the new interim city manager. And so I wanted to make sure that I think that something like this could be beneficial to the city of Sea Pleasant. But I think it's important that our processes are effective. So we can say it on paper, but if the process isn't really effective and meeting its goal, it really does us no good. And so I think that some of the things that were mentioned are definitely needed in the city. And I don't know if this was already presented to committee. I wasn't involved in the RFP process. That was my predecessor. But I think that when it comes to the progress and what we're looking at holistically, what I've noticed is that we say it, but it's not properly executed in a lot of ways. And so how is that effective? What my real question is, what were you all told, or what do you know about Sea Pleasant? And going in day one, what do you think your first objective would be based on what you know? I know you guys haven't worked here, but based on what you were told or based on the conversations, what do you think, day one is the first thing we need to target?
So, can I take that? I want to take this one. So, working backwards on your question, when there are policies and practices in place and individuals choose not to follow those or to determine or to choose who they want to apply the policy and process to and who they don't, obviously sets up some pretty conflicting situations. If the policy is the policy, that's what it is. You have the power to change it. You have the power to, re-legislate. But the bottom line is the policy, and that's where training, that's where the leadership development comes in, because everyone needs to be held accountable. We need to be held accountable. You're being held accountable. And accountability is a huge word in our program, in our leadership development program. And we would take it step by step, because nobody wants to be, spoon-fed, and here's all this information, we throw it at you and we're out. No, doesn't work like that, because that's not gonna help change. Human behavior, we might be motivated by different things, like maybe we're motivated to change because the law is changing. Maybe we're motivated to change because we're going through a different phase of life, but that's where we start. We have to work on the behavior that is allowing this to happen. So what have we, coming forward to your to answer your question, what we understand from the RFP, from within the conversations leading up to the RFP, is that there are morale issues, there's turnover, there's a lack of training, a lack of consistency in making sure the policies are applied to everyone equally and fairly. Those are huge, and the learning management system is that I understand. It can't be, you can't quantify how helpful that's going to be, because that's when behavior begins to change. Behavior that does not want to change, you have to make some hard decisions. I'm not certain, other than the information we were privy to on the internet. I know that as a governing body, that there are some things that we can do in nonprofit, private organizations that we cannot do, with governmental agencies, and I'm sure you would be letting us know what that is, and we then figure out, well, what's the workaround? So the solutions is you need the answers. If there's a problem, we explore why there's a problem. We pull it apart. Is it related to people, data, or things? We do the fishbone, and we say, okay, based on what we've determined, what we see here, here's what we recommend. And you got it. I mean, it's not simple. I can't tell you how many people push back. Yes, ma'am.
No, that's good. I also want to add, it's going to be important, thank you for the question, we can't build a foundation if we don't understand the landscape, right? So that's going to provide us the opportunity to collect data and meet our team members that we're building the structure for. So what we're going to do within the first 30 days is understand your people, understand the team members, and then customize our approach to better fit the need. Trust is built when somebody delivers on their word, right? Confidence is built when somebody delivers on their word. So if that's a pillar that we'd like to kind of build through, then we have to make sure that we deliver.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I think it's important that, even from Ms. Love's standpoint, that when you have one generation working with another, it's important that we need that generation. Being a millennial, we need a generation not to drop the mic. And so one of the things in C+, I think is important, that succession and how we work through our opportunities, I don't like the word problems, how we work through our areas of opportunity. And I think I'm excited for it. I will tell you this, though, from experience, I think it's always harder to deprogram people than to program new people. And I think that has been a long-term opportunity in multiple governments that I've worked for. So I think that reading over this, I think it could be a great opportunity. I think we need to dive into it a little more from a standpoint of talking with our legislators who are part of the team, who lead the team, part of the team, but are not always included in those processes, which make it hard to properly govern sometimes. And so, but I think it's a great opportunity. I think the city needs it, and so I think we can dissect it a little bit and go from there.
Can I add something? The proposal is there's a lot of information in it because we would rather give you more in terms of the process than less. It is just a process because the longer someone's in a position or doing a certain thing, neural pathways change, and we know this. And so, having said that, it takes patience. It takes looking at it takes discovery. What is it that can help? The millennials, we're all people, whether we're Gen Zers or Gen Y, X, Y, Z, we all need the same thing. We need food, clothing, and shelter, and we need a sense of belonging, and we need to feel appreciated. That's just human need. If we touch on those, trust me, neural pathways begin to change, especially if there's a threat. People sometimes, there has to be a little bit of a threat, right? I mean, sometimes, not every time, because we don't want to, we're not the folks that come in and you got to do this. We're flexible. My team itself, we have all 5 generations on the Spectrum team. So we really know how to work with each other because we have a common goal. Our values match. We have the values. You accept the values of honesty, trust, communication, have fun while you're doing it, bring some joy into your life. You want creativity. I know she likes creativity. Great. What you got? Because we need each other. We need every generation. Yeah, we've got the history, but look at the opportunity for change.
And the only thing is, I want to make sure that our HR department is involved, and getting her professional opinion of how we implement the program and things like that. I know that we've sat down already and kind of talked about it somewhat, but HR is crucial in that process, and so making sure that she has the tools that she needs to be effective. So I appreciate you coming, though. Thank you.
Thank you.
No more questions. You've answered most of them through the questions that have come from the folks out here, which I find good. The only thing is also the recommendations that you may have, which means that staff-wise, okay, if you find that during that time period, if we're insufficient with the parties that we have as far as staff to be effective in that, you would make recommendations that you would consider that as well, okay? So, okay. All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And next, the illustrious Councilmember Oriata.
Good evening. I apologize that I was running a few minutes late. I was at Capitol Heights, and I definitely wanted to make it here next. For those that are listening, I'm Councilwoman Chris Storieva, representing District 7 on the Prince George's County Council, and thank you so much for having me this evening. I just want to give a little bit of an update on some of the policy and legislation that we're working on. Also, some updates from the budget, but then more importantly here, if there's any issues or concerns that you all have that I can bring back to the council. So a few pieces of legislation that I have introduced and are working on currently. One is the senior tax credit. We heard a lot of complaints about the senior tax credit that passed before my time on the council, where our seniors that already had the homestead property tax were no longer eligible for the senior property tax. If they had 20% of that, they weren't eligible for any of the senior property tax. So what we did was move legislation to remove that barrier. So if someone has the homestead property tax, even if they have it up to the 20% threshold, they would still be eligible for our senior property tax as well. So that legislation will be heard on May 28th. So definitely, if that's something that this city is in support of, we'd love for a letter of support or anyone to come out and testify on that. We also have a startup fund, which is a minority startup fund that is going to be through the Economic Development Corporation. So this is a new fund where I was able to carve out 10% of the funds to go towards businesses that are expanding or starting inside of the Beltway. So definitely want support on that. We've had an issue bringing businesses inside of the Beltway. So if there is a business that either wants to expand, they're currently in the county but don't have a brick or mortar inside of the Beltway, or it's just a new startup, they'd be eligible for that program. We have the 911 voluntary registry program. So we've seen a lot of issues with people that are suffering from mental health issues and special needs, and not having the first responders know that that person might be triggered by loud noises. Maybe they won't respond the same way that someone is used to someone responding based on their training. So this will allow all of our first responders to know if someone in the home suffers from mental health issues or special needs and what those triggers are. It's 100% voluntary. So that legislation is also being heard on the 28th. We introduced and passed legislation for a Blue Line Corridor committee. This would allow, moving forward, any development projects. As you know, there's a lot of projects that are going to come around the Blue Line Corridor, which is part of Sea Pleasant, that will impact our community. And we want a seat at the table. We want to ensure that every time a project comes up, that our community, our residents know about it and they have the opportunity to engage. So this will allow each council member to select 2 members from our districts. It will be from 5, 6, and 7 to sit on this committee. And any time that a development project comes through, they will have an opportunity to review the project and also submit their opinions to the zoning hearing board. We have mental health and firearm safety legislation. This is named after Grant Cofield, a young man that walked into a firing range for the first time and committed suicide. And so what this legislation does is if you go to a firing range or any place you can purchase a gun or ammunition, that you're provided with information around suicide prevention and conflict resolution before you actually can receive that weapon or ammunition. I have a reentry hiring legislation really focusing on creating a set aside for government employee hiring for returning citizens. We've had an issue with our returning citizen program currently getting businesses to join on. We only have 3 businesses with the program that we currently have, where we subsidize some of the funding to the local business. So one of the things we wanted to do is expand that fund to government employees. So if a government agency is willing to hire a returning citizen, they can have the first year of that salary come out of this fund instead of their operating budget. So it's an incentive for our government agencies to hire returning citizens. So that's another piece of legislation I've introduced. We have a ghost gun legislation. We've had ghost guns being part of the number one thing we've heard from law enforcement is the rise of ghost guns, especially with our juveniles. So we have legislation that says you can no longer share any part of the data to print any facet of the gun. So we're really just trying to have our legislation catch up with technology. So that piece of legislation has also been presented. And we have the late night safety plan. So this would mandate any businesses that are open between 6 p.m. and 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. to have a safety night plan that's approved by the police department. So it's not a one-size-fits-all. We understand that each business might need something different. One business might need lights, one business might need cameras, another business might need on-site security. But what it does say is that your business has to get an approved plan by the police department, and you have to renew it every 3 years. So that's a safety night plan piece of legislation that is also pending. And then we have legislation also around increasing parental leave from 10 days to 20 days for government employees, and creating mandatory lactation stations in all government buildings where they're public facing. We have started our truancy and gun violence work group. So I passed that legislation last year to focus on truancy. We've seen a real correlation between repeat offenders and juvenile offenders and truancy. And we realized that there wasn't an early warning system in our school system to really intervene before we have someone that's truant 50, 60 days plus. And so that work group is meeting now and working on policies that we can do in the school system, and then also resources, and that we're also launching our gun violence one. From a budgetary standpoint, as you all know, I've advocated for the city to get project charge last year in the budget. We have had issues with park and planning and moving any of our project charges through, specifically inside of the Beltway in South County. They have moved project charges up north, but for some reason, the project charges in Central and South County have not moved forward. And so I'm trying to advocate to roll over, if not all, but at least a percentage of the funding that I've allocated for Sea Pleasant, so that you can see those resources. But this is something where a letter issuing about the complaints, or how the process maybe wasn't the easiest process with park and planning, would be helpful from all the different towns and cities inside of the district. And also just talking about how we've been woefully underfunded and neglected comparatively. And it's only fair that since they own the responsibility of why the contracts weren't signed, that they roll over the funds, because there's no way that you all can spend the funds in the time allotted that's left. We also are advocating for different projects to be moved inside of the Beltway. We're advocating for a pool, a splash park, a new library, some road and infrastructure, and an ATV park. We've seen there is a huge increase of a lot of our young people that are driving their ATVs on the street. Our officers' hands are tied. They cannot chase them legally. Baltimore has a ATV park. It was partially funded by federal dollars. I think Prince George's County should do the same. So I'll be working with Park and Planning. We'll be going to Baltimore to tour what they have there and see if it's possible to bring something like that here to Prince George's County. And lastly, I'll say, and then yield the floor for any questions, that I always have my monthly roundtables. I know that I do my best to come to as many events in the city as possible, especially because I live here in Sea Pleasant. But also, I want to make myself available. So every month on Zoom, I'm available for at least 2 hours, and so those are virtual. And so I'll make sure, if you all have not received a link to that, that you do, and we can send it to you as well, so you can send it to any residents as well. And that is my updates.
Any question? Mayor Porter?
Thank you. Thank you so much for coming out. You know, we know you're busy, busy lady. You touched on a point of project charge for the resources and going through dealing with park and planning. We had for the most part, given a park that we had for a number of years over to park and planning with hopes that they would do special things to that park, which really, for the most part, really didn't materialize.
And
They
which
do,
park is that?
that would be Sea Pleasant Park, formerly Holly Park. It had a number of other names too, but we won't discuss that by virtue of things that were actually taking place there. But they do maintain it as far as maybe keeping it somewhat mowed and things of that nature, but we did that under the auspices that we would get equipment and other things as far as updated equipment and shelter, things of that nature. They basically maintain it for the most part because sometimes they have recreational activities there, such as football leagues and so forth during that time period. But again, the initial thing of giving it was that we would receive pretty much similar things that you might see out on Enterprise Road, which they have, in certain other areas, okay? And they're updated to what you had mentioned about having a water park, a splash park, and things of that nature. And we didn't receive that, okay? That was the hope during that time period. We would like some assistance with reference to, whatever is necessary, even though I know it's necessary for the council, okay, the council to go in, setting on some of these meetings with parking planning, so we can say, look, we want certain things to actually take place in our community parks, because we'd like to have a whole lot more participation in those particular park areas. Some of those parks have an aspect of some overgrown trees, and it's become problematic to us, and could become problematic to Sunval citizens in specific wards. One would be, in this matter, Ward 3, packing Ward 3 and Ward 4, because it's a park that really, if it's connected properly, would lead from one park to our fitness park. So there's some things we'd like to do all together with the parks, the various parks that we actually have in the city that would, for our use, because if they're maintained properly, just like one of the parks we down here was kind of stellar. We actually get participation from people all over that come to this park because of what the park offers, okay? We'd like to have you work with us in those areas, okay? I'll yield. I don't want to take a...
Good evening. What's the deadline for the letter regarding the project charges?
Before we pass the budget, so if it could be done this week, that would be preference.
Okay.
Is there a formatted arrangement you'd like for that? We just...
No formal format, as long as it's emailed to me, you can CC the clerk, or I can send it to the clerk.
Okay.
So either way.
Council President, yeah. I just want to make sure, hi, how you doing? I don't really have a question that would be so formal, but I do want to know if you'll be available afterwards for offline question, if at all possible. We shouldn't be too long, right?
If you're not too long, I definitely will be available still. If not, I can always still give you my information. We can set up another meeting as well. I'm definitely open to that.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Just the information you have on getting that thing for new startups, because I do have people that have been contacting me in reference to getting startups predominantly in the inner beltway. Okay.
So the fund is just live now, the original fund, without the 10% set aside. So what I can do is send it to you now as is, but the goal is if we pass that legislation, moving forward, I'll have the 10% set aside, but the first iteration of the fund is open right now. And so I'll make a note to get you the application so you can send it out. But I just want to highlight that right now, it doesn't have the 10% set aside. We have to pass that first.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you. I just want to say I do like the idea of a splash park. I got an idea where I would like for it to go, but it's not in my ward, so.
Well, I'm always open to hearing suggestions.
Okay. We thank you.
Thank you.
Just the last thing.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Okay, legislation. Mrs. Ball.
Okay, ordinance O-2413, introduced by City Council to introduce May 6, 2024, first reading, May 6, 2024, second reading, May 13, 2024, an ordinance to adopt the budget for fiscal year 2024-2025, and to provide for the establishment of budgeting for the FY 2024-2025 fiscal year. Section 1, be it ordained and enacted by the City Council of Seat Pleasant, Maryland, that the sums and amounts appropriated for fiscal year beginning July 1, 2024 and ending June 30 of 2025 are set forth in the ordinance. Section 2, and be it further ordained and enacted that the following sums and amounts are hereby appropriated for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2024 and ending June 30 of 2025 to defray expenses and operation costs for the City of Seat Pleasant. General funds expenditures, general government, $6,712,384. Public safety, $4,528,363. Environmental justice, $2,527,16. Public engagement, $444,892. Total general fund expenditures, $14,212,655,000. Revenues of real estate taxes, $2,563,178. Personal property, $1,222,247. Local taxes, $299,363. Intergovernment and grants, $1,622,916. Reserves, $304,224. Grants, $250,000. Other finance and source, $7,379,246. Other revenue sources, $571,481. Total government fund revenues, $14,212,655. Total budget expenditures and revenues is $14,212,655. Section 3, and be it further ordained and enacted that the real estate property tax for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2024 and ending June 30th, 2025 should be at the rate of 58 cents per $100 of assessed real property value. Section 4, be it further ordained and enacted that the personal property tax for fiscal year beginning July 1, 2024 and ending June 30th, 2025 should be at the rate of $12 per $100 of assessed personal property value. Section 5, and be it further ordained and enacted that from and after the effective date of this ordinance, funds appropriated to the general categories of the expenditures by and as reflected in this ordinance shall be expended only for such purposes and up to such amounts for each such purpose, and set forth in the document entitled 2024-2025 Approved Annual Budget attached to the ordinance and incorporated herein by reference. Section 6, and be it further ordained and enacted that this ordinance shall be advertised twice in the newspaper of general circulation in the city of East Pleasant, Maryland within 20 days of enactment. Section 7, and be it further ordained and enacted that the city clerk should certify to the adoption of this ordinance and cause the same to be published as required by law, and that this ordinance shall become effective 20 days following the approval by the mayor, or unless subsequently passed by a favorable vote from 5 members of the whole council after veto by the mayor.
You've heard ordinance 0-2413. Anybody like to make a motion?
So move.
Second.
Moved by Councilwoman McCarthy, second by Councilmember Bilbro. Are there any questions? Hearing none. Mrs. Ball.
Online voting has been opened. Measure passes 6-1 by City Council.
Okay, next report. Reporter.
Thank you, Mr. President. Madam Clerk, are there any residents on the line right now?
Yes.
Okay. The reason why I say that is because typically the report that I actually have, or the president of the mayor and the council president has, we typically go over for the most part in the work session. My report is in board docs. The only thing I concern myself with was board docs is those who have the ability to actually go on and get board docs. So I'm gonna sum this up very quickly and read through this just for that edification, and I would have foregone it if there was one there. But April 1st, a regular work session attended along with for the most of the sessions that were attended. April 8th, public session, April 8th, budget hearing 13th, and also a closed session, April 17th, the municipalities in the know, government county composting program. The 22nd, Fairmont Heights Community Rodeo. The 22nd, also Economic Development and Housing Committee. And the 22nd, these combined, Prince George's County Historical Society chat with Chairperson Thompson, and a Sea Pleasant installation. On April the 24th through the 22nd, I attended the African American Mayors Conference in Atlanta, Georgia, where I picked up a large amount of information being distributed to this day, and also setting us in a position to be able to get additional information as to what the state of affairs are with cities across the nation. A resolution on for application of a approval of a feasibility study and funding. On April the 20th, I spoke at the Creative Placemaking event in City Hall parking lot, and on the 27th, spoke at Autism Alley Uplift Awards dinner. On April the 29th, I attended the 90th birthday party of a gentleman who had worked in Sea Pleasant for 53 years as a barber to celebrate his 90th birthday. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Mayor Porter. Are there any questions for Mayor? Okay, thank you. Now, next is my report. It's in board docs. But I was gonna ask Ms. Ball, could you care to read it? Cause so it could be a quick and smoother read.
Sure.
Thank you.
Council President, report, reflects the meetings of the council for the, month of April. The regular work session, public session, budget hearings on Monday, April 8th, as well as Saturday, April 13th. Special and closed sessions on Saturday, April 13th, Monday, April 22nd, Tuesday, April 23rd, and Wednesday, April 24th, 2024. The legislation that was approved by the city council, there were actually two pieces of legislation approved in the month of April. This report only lists one resolution, R 2405, and resolution which deals with the approval of the application for the feasibility study, and resolution 2406 to appoint the interim city manager sitting to my right. Thursday, the meeting, he attended the PGCMA meeting as well as a meeting for the, at the First Baptist Church of Glenarden for the political forum. He attended the creative placemaking event on Saturday, April 20th, 2024 here at City Hall. There was one committee meeting held in the month of April for council committee meeting, which is the Economic Planning, Development, and Housing Committee. Okay. And the report reflects the attendance of the mayor and council, where most of the members of the mayor and council was present and or excused during the month of April. And that completes the report for the council president.
Thank you, Mrs. Ball. Any questions? Hearing none. Interim City Manager Harris.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. The report for last month is in board docs for your review. I do want to highlight a couple of things. I've completed my first full week as the interim city manager. We did have the opportunity last week to have our first department head meeting, which will occur on Tuesdays going forward. And to avoid, the Monday meetings if we're already having council meetings twice a month. So the department has agreed we're going to meet every Tuesday to kind of knock out some action items. Additionally, I had the opportunity to meet with several department heads. Those meetings lasted a lot longer than any of us originally anticipated, but I think we're getting off to a pretty good start. I will say that I walked in with probably 4 action items and walked out the first meeting with exactly 32. And so I think over the last week it's been a great opportunity, just in general, to really dive into some of our departments and what's needed. I think last week alone I counted 94 documents that needed immediate attention or my signature. And so the work is definitely there. I will tell you that in our department meeting, I think it was productive. I think we laid out some of the foundations I think that are extremely important for teams to really build upon. And so it gave an opportunity for our department heads to kind of lay some stuff on the line, kind of talk about where we are and where we're going. I am concerned about process. I think a lot of times in the city, I think the ideas are good, and same thing I brought up with the HR consultants, but I don't think our processes are always realistic to our operation. And so in my analysis that I plan on giving in 30 days, that's one of the things that I will bring up, that making sure that our policies and processes are realistic to our operation. I'm looking forward to sitting down with quite a few of the council members to talk about some additional expectations going into the next fiscal year. Additionally, I think that we need to get back to the basics of our strategic plan. And so I've asked the department heads all to provide 60 and 90-day plans on what that looks like for their departments going into the next fiscal year, just to make sure that we're all on the same page. I think what needs to happen, though, is that once these plans are gathered, it's important to communicate those things to the council on what we're working on, what we're working towards, and to get input from you all on what you all would like to see. I think we got to continue to communicate that. I did give each of the department heads one of the books that's on the reading list for the police department. I do have copies for the members of the council. It's called the 17 Infallible Laws of Teamwork. And I think it breaks down some of the foundations of why teams break up. And while you all lead the team, I think it's important to understand the team as a whole for we can operate effectively. And so I do have those books for you guys. I do agree that I think that there is a morale issue overall, but I think that we certainly can overcome that by just getting on board, right, with just the operation as a whole, and understanding that all of us should be look at vulnerabilities in our department and not look at those as weaknesses, but look at those as opportunities to kind of do something great. It is not easy, but it is definitely in the end can be worth it. For the record, I am taking all meetings in City Hall, at the office upstairs. I am operating in my office in the police department simply because I don't think it's for an interim position just to go and move all my stuff up here. I think it's it would be kind of arrogant, and so I am, instead of just doing that and wasting unnecessary labor, I am in my office when you all need me. About any meetings, anything like that, I'm available certainly to in City Hall. I would ask that we consider scheduling any meetings that are needed, simply because I think talking to a lot of the department heads, some of them have 40 or 50 tasks that need to be completed pretty much immediately. I know Ms. Logan, for example, when she's in audit mode, we cannot disturb that. It's extremely important. And so, and I want to make sure they have the time to really accomplish some of those tasks. And so I would ask that we be cognizant of some of their time. I did make it very clear, though, that I think it's important for our department heads' mental health and just overall productivity if they make sure that we have a balanced work life here in Seat Pleasant. And so, not to be overly consumed, but I did, I'm emphasizing you got to spend time with your families. You got to make sure that there's balance in what we do here, because then in return you will provide a better product for the resident. And so, May is Mental Health Awareness Month. I do have some bracelets provided by Recovery Centers of America who provide those bracelets to us. So I want us to wear those the rest of the month. I have those bracelets for you all. But let's work on what our environment looks like, how we want it to be, and how we can thrive going into our fiscal year 2025. Other than that, I'll take any questions anyone may have.
No question. I know that the chief has a lot on his plate. He's seeing this particular arrangement, so there probably is going to be some recommendations that might come. But I'm tabling that right now. We had a discussion, and I'll further give information with the next week.
Anybody have questions? Comments? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Alrighty, no new business. New business. Approval to pay delinquent retirement funding.
Yes.
It's a G.
They're both.
Ms. Logan.
Good evening, council members and mayor.
Good evening.
An issue that you have before you, if I can just pause for a moment. Ms. Barber, I need to give you a copy of this as well. The issue you have before you is that the city has a 401A retirement plan for permanent full-time employees. However, the annual retirement contribution for the city has not been paid for FY 21, 22, and 23. This was an issue that was brought to my attention during the prior city manager and Ms. Barber, and we were working things out. As I said that, you can't use FY 24 budget money to pay for prior retirement contributions. And so we putting before you a request to use the contingency funds to cover $180,000 in retirement contribution for FY 21, 22, and 23. Those monies were in the budgets for those fiscal years, but the payments were not made. There was a misunderstanding as to who had the responsibility to submit the paperwork. And so I think that, for the most part, created a problem, in addition to the number of turnover in the Department of Finance as well. And so we're recommending to the City Council that you would approve finance to use monies from the City Administration Contingency Fund to cover the $180,000. Currently, the balance in that contingency fund is $534,565. And so if the City Council approve this recommendation, then the Human Resource Department can prepare the purchase requisition assigned by the interim city manager so that we can process that payment immediately. Any questions?
Mr. President, I have a question, but my question is for Mrs. Ball. Does this need to be done through the budget, or because it's in contingency, is it something that can just be paid out?
Right, because the funding is in its request to be paid out of contingency. If it was like a transfer to the finance department, which I'm not certain if that money is allocated.
Because she
in
still
the
didn't
finance
say who
department.
was, she still didn't necessarily say whose responsibility it was to pay it. I heard you mention that there was a misunderstanding of whose job it was to pay it, or to do the paperwork, I should say, because it's obviously your job to pay it. But depending on whose job it is to do the paperwork, will it need to be taken out of contingency and put into another person's budget? Could it still be paid out of contingency,
Be paid out of contingency.
no matter whose job it is to do?
Right, because you're paying for prior year. If it was this year's budget, then you would have to do a budget amendment. But because you're paying for the prior year, the request is to take it out of
So
contingency.
I'm not far off. Okay. That would normally be the process.
That would normally be the process,
Okay.
correct.
Okay.
And just to address your question, Councilwoman McCarthy, Finance prepares purchase requisition for its expenditures. All the departments, the contribution for retirement comes under human resource. So I think in the past, it was a confusion at that time in the past as to who should have prepared that request. But we can only prepare requests on behalf of Department of Finance expenditures to have the city manager approve. And that's usually the process as it is.
The question I have would be that, once we do this, moving forward, okay, so that this does not take place again, okay, have we put all the appropriate procedures in place, okay, for making sure that that's taken care of? That can be answered by...
Actually, they're already in place. We've already paid the FY '24 contribution.
Okay, so there is no problem moving forward?
No.
Okay.
So the policy is written, it just wasn't followed.
I'll let Miss Barber answer that. This was prior to my time when I learned that this had not occurred, because when we did the FY '21 audit, that was a question I asked. Oh, I didn't see any retirement contribution from the city, and so that generated further discussion. So I think, Ms. Barber, do you have anything you might want to add?
And one last, while we're at it and so forth, as far as when that money actually comes out, okay, does it affect anything else? Okay.
You gonna let them finish my question, or you gonna?
I thought you would finish your question.
She got to
Ms.
answer the
Barber is
question.
gonna respond to my question.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. To answer your question,
Sorry.
Ms. McCarthy, the process was, before Ms. Logan came into the city, we were under COVID, and the finance department had the finance department, because we were working remotely, so forth and so on, had the responsibility to send the money per year to the retirement company. That didn't happen.
Who
That-
does the paperwork? We get that the finance had to send the money. I think I always understood that part. But whose responsibility was it to do the paperwork?
It was the finance department. When I came back to HR, that's how it was initially set up, the finance department. And that information was given to Mr. Mosley, Mrs. Ojo, and then Miss Betty. It was actually passed on to each one of these managers each year. How I got passed, I can't say.
Okay. Okay.
Any more questions on that part?
Yes.
Okay.
I yield, 'cause
Good.
The question is the money, once the money comes out of that particular fund, because it's coming out of money from the contingency fund, okay? That's in 2024, okay? What kind, does that have any effect, because it's in contingency, on anything else, okay, leaning forward that we have to, the council may need to understand to replenish something, okay, from another source? Or is that something that we have in case of the contingency?
Yeah, contingency fund is like a rainy day fund. You use that for an unexpected emergencies or unexpected expenditures. And so this is clearly an unexpected expenditure because the city has an obligation to make an annual contribution towards the retirement fund. And we've actually had, one employee to inquire about that, was concerned that the city, quote, didn't seem to have enough money in its retirement contribution plan. And so, but going forward, that's not a problem. The FY24 contribution has already been paid. We're aware of what should be paid, and we'll work with Ms. Barber, at least as long as I'm here, know what the Lord's going to do to make sure that the annual contribution is made on time.
thank you. Thank you.
Great, Councilwoman Higgs.
Maybe I missed it. If it wasn't paid for 2021, 2022, and 2023, the money was allocated in the budgets
That's correct.
each year.
That's correct.
So what happened to the money that was allocated for those 3 years?
It wasn't spent.
It wasn't spent. Okay.
And if you look at the FY21 audit, you'll notice that overall, and we'll be presenting the audit financial statements soon, overall, the expenditures for FY21 were much less than what the budget, the approved budget for FY21. And that was just one of the expenditures not paid.
Okay. So the money was allocated, it just wasn't spent.
That's correct.
So it remained there. Okay.
That's correct.
Thank you. Thank you. Ms.
Any
And
other
going
questions?
forward, the paperwork will come from HR
HR, yes, to finance.
and then to,
Yes,
okay.
because everything is sent to bill.com, and then we process the payment
Okay,
once it's approved.
all right. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions? Okay,
Thank you, Ms. Logan.
thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Logan.
Thank you so
Thank you,
much.
Ms. Logan.
Okay,
Godfrey.
announcement. Mr. Wright. Pick up.
That's funny.
All right, announcement.
Oh, yeah. I'm rushing. I'm sorry. I apologize. So, anybody would like to make a motion to approve?
I make a motion. I make a motion that we approve what Ms. Logan said about the retirement fund.
I second that.
Thank you.
Okay. Any questions? Any questions?
Nope,
No questions.
don't make no questions. Don't have none.
Do it.
Ms. Ball,
Okay, I'm sorry, I was putting the motion in.
take your time.
So
Get picked
the
by the hour.
online voting has been open.
You got to put me down, yes, please.
Yes, ma'am.
What's she going with it?
Measure passes 5-1. I'm sorry, 6-1. I miscounted.
Ready? Councilman, right?
8, announcements. 8.1, regular work session, Monday, June the 3rd, 2024, C Pleasant City Hall Chambers, 6301 Addison Road. Sorry, Addison Road. C Pleasant, Maryland at 6 o'clock p.m., hybrid and by Zoom video at 6 o'clock p.m. Meeting link details will be on the city's website. 8.2, Ward 3 meeting, Wednesday, June the 5th, 2024, C Pleasant City Hall, 3rd floor, 6301 Addison Road, C Pleasant, from 1 to 3 p.m. and from 6 to 8 p.m. Councilmember Scott, do you want to say anything about that?
No, you pretty much summed it up. Thank you.
All right, thank you. 8.3, public session, Monday, June the 10th, 2024, C Pleasant City Hall, Council Chambers, 6301 Addison Road, C Pleasant, Maryland, 20743, hybrid and by Zoom video at 7 o'clock p.m. Meeting link details will be on the city's website. 8.4, MML Summer Conference, Ocean City, Maryland, from June the 23rd to the 26th. 8.5, regular work session, Monday, July the 1st, 2024, C Pleasant City Hall, Council Chambers, 6301 Addison Road, C Pleasant, Maryland, 20743, hybrid and by Zoom video at 6 o'clock p.m. Meeting link will be, details will be on the city's website. And 8.6, public session, Monday, July the 8th, 2024, C Pleasant City Hall, Council Chambers, 6301 Addison Road, C Pleasant, 20743, hybrid and by Zoom video at 7 o'clock p.m. Meeting links, details will be on the city's website.
Thank you, sir.
Council President?
Yes.
If I may, don't want to forget Juneteenth celebrations on June the 15th.
Yep.
Okay. So we have the Juneteenth celebration on June the 15th down at Goodwin Park, correct?
Here's the sign.
Let me see.
Isn't that nice?
Very nice.
If there's no, any other questions, meeting's adjourned
Thank you.
at 9:06.
9:06.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.